The archive database in ELM is used for long-term storage purposes and is very valuable in supporting compliance objectives. If you are looking to keep records around for 6 months, a year, or longer, then you will want to enable and configure the archive database. To access the database settings, we'll right-click on the ELM server name and choose Database Settings. Here we can review the primary and failover database settings and define the database server we are going to use for archiving. In this case, it will be a different server than our ELM installation is running on. We can also specify the name of the archive database. Windows authentication is an option here as well, similar to the primary and failover databases above. Note that the first time you run through the archive database settings, ELM will prompt you that the database does not exist and will then ask permission to create it for you. Next, we'll take a look at the Retention Policy tab. First, we'll specify how much event data to retain in the primary database. This is the date range for data that will be viewable from within the ELM console. Data older than this will automatically be rolled over into an archive database on this schedule. The filters here determine what will be retained. As you can see, by default we archive all events. New filters can be added and customized here to suit your individual needs. The next section has settings that allows us to retain and archive both performance data and SNMP data as well. The final option on this tab is to archive now. We can see when the next archive is scheduled to run as well. A word of caution using the Archive Now option, as it can be very resource intensive on both the ELM server and your SQL server. It is best this be done during off-peak hours if you choose to use it. Now we'll take a look at the Archive tab. Here we can define how many databases to keep. For example, if we opt to keep 12 databases and create a new database every 1 month, we have 1 year's worth of data in 1 month archives. Another option is to create a new database once 20 gigabytes of size is triggered. In this case, keeping 12 databases would result in roughly 240 gigabytes of data. Here we can also see any existing archive databases available that the ELM console can be connected to. This table includes the database name and both the oldest and newest events. Other details can be displayed here by right-clicking on one of the rows and checking the other fields we want to display. The last tab we'll look at here is Properties, which simply shows a summary of all our database settings. This can come in handy in the case of tech support. Once we're through, we'll select OK, and we've completed the process of setting up our archives as well as our retention and archiving policies. To connect to an archive database is a simple process. In the ELM console, we'll navigate to the results container, right-click, and then select Connect Archive Database. A dialog appears showing the archive database is available. We'll highlight the one we want to connect to and click OK. Now we'll expand the left pane of the console over just a little so we can see a second results container has appeared. It has been labeled with the archive database we just connected to. As you can see, we have the same options for event views, performance data, and also reports here as we do in the primary database results container. To disconnect from an archive database, simply right-click on the archive results container and select Remove. Although you can connect an archive database from clicking on the ELM server, you want to be careful not to try to remove the archive database connection from this point. If you choose Remove from the ELM server, you will sever the connection between ELM and the primary and failover databases, not the archive database. This concludes the archive database settings tutorial. Thank you for your time, and we wish you continued success with your ELM deployment.